I'm guessing at least some of you here had the chance to practice meditation, right? Lately, it feels like mindfulness and other Buddhist ideas are everywhere. Some workplaces start their staff meeting with a couple minutes of breathing. We learn of Buddhist compassion and parents' guidance. And even in Pilates class, I was once told to breathe with loving kindness to my core. Buddhism has made it big time. It's good for your health, your family life, and your career. So let's imagine for a minute one of those meditation sessions now so popular. We enter a quiet room, probably with a wooden floor. We take off our shoes and leave them together with our daily troubles outside. Everyone with serene faces is sitting on low cushions, and you can smell a light scent of incense. The facilitator, with her back straight, will knock on a Tibetan bowl and speak with a tender, soothing voice. Now, in those sessions, you often learn a text, some Buddhist teaching to inspire and develop your mindfulness skill. Let's dive in for a couple of moments to one possible text that can be learned in this setting. Once upon a time, the Buddha woke up in the morning and went to the nearest town to gather alms. Right after that, a monk called Raula did the very same thing and followed him closely behind. The Buddha then turns around to Raula and says, "Raula, all material form should be seen as it actually is. This is not mine. This I am not. This is not the self." Or in the language of the Buddhist scripture, "Neta mama, neso ahamasmi, na meso atati." With these words, the Buddha teaches the monk the important principle of non-attachment. In a nutshell, according to Buddhist philosophy, all phenomena are impermanent. Therefore, the wrong notion that transient things can actually be ours causes suffering. Raula then asks, "Only material form, Blessed One? Only material form, Sublime One? Rupamevanuko Bhagava? Rupamevanuko Sugata?" The Buddha answers that all phenomena, including our thoughts and feelings, should not be seen as inherent to the self. This idea is supposed to help us develop deep equanimity toward the hardship of our life. If we don't identify so much with what defines us, we can experience more freedom and have better capacity for change and the unexpected. In a way, this passage represents how we like our Buddhism: clean and calm, a wise and simple teaching in a quiet, sterile room. So when the session is over, we will put our sneakers back on and go out to the street, ready to practice what we've learned. So why is it that in the first traffic jam we meet, our deep compassion suddenly disappears? And why is it so hard to practice non-attachment towards our partner that once again forgot to take out the trash? Reading this text, I was bothered. How can we connect this beautiful teaching to our messy day-to-day lives? One thing you need to know about this text is that it is taken from a corpus called the Pali Canon, which is the sacred text of the Buddhist Theravada tradition. This tradition, prevalent in Southeast Asia, sees this text as a Buddha Vachana, the words of the Buddha. And scholars believe it was formed and transmitted orally in the first centuries BC after the Buddha's death. My encounter with Buddhist texts came after many years of traditional learning of Jewish scriptures. And though these traditions are in so many ways distant, the idea of religious reading felt relevant to the Buddhist text as well. If these are perceived as the words of the Buddha, we have to pay close attention to every word, perhaps even to every syllable. Nothing is just because when it comes to divine words. Every textual crack has a story behind it, every character is carefully crafted, and every teaching conceals a fountain of interpretation. This is why, when I read this text, there was something that caught my eye, or more precisely, my ear. Raula didn't just walk after the Buddha, as monks are always described in this text. He followed him closely behind. And in Pali, which is also the language of these scriptures, he was pittito pittito annubandhi, where you can almost hear his clinging footsteps and perhaps even a hint to the harmful attachment we just talked about. From other canonical sources, I learned that the texts neglect to mention one small detail. Raula is the Buddha's son. Eager to learn more about this father-son relationship, I realized that the canon gives only dry details, and I had to keep on looking. At this moment, I became aware of the Aṭṭhakathā, the commentary to the Pali Canon. This corpus contains a treasure of interpretation and stories precious to the tradition. Scholars in the field tend to dismiss it as late and inferior, a mere collection of childish folk tales, not representing real Buddhism, the one found in austere and serious philosophical discourses. But for the tradition, this corpus is as ancient and in a way also as sacred as the canon itself. In a way, the Aṭṭhakathā is the backstage of the canon, where you can get a peek to the live human emotion of characters through meaningful stories. Tales about the Buddha's evil cousins, narratives about quarrels between reverend monks, and love stories between kings and queens. Stories from the Aṭṭhakathā have been told, retold, and developed for centuries, and until today, they have a great cultural influence. Throughout the Buddhist world, we found countless of popular versions of stories originating in the Aṭṭhakathā. Children's books about the Buddha's past life. A theater show enacting a famous story from the Aṭṭhakathā, like this one of the National Ballet of Cambodia. Or here, for example, you can see a poster of a blockbuster movie from Sri Lanka, telling a story from the Aṭṭhakathā about Yashodhara, the mother of Raula, whom we just met, and her visceral love for the Buddha, who after years of marriage left in order to achieve his spiritual goals. The Aṭṭhakathā tells us that the Buddha was raised as crown prince, spending his youth in the luxurious life of the palace, until one day he decided to leave all this indulgence in search for enlightenment, nirvana, the ultimate bliss. In this story, we also learn that it was only a week after Raula was born that the Buddha left for this quest. Moments before mounting on his horse in the middle of the night, he went to have a final glance at his newborn baby. When he saw Raula cradled in his mother's arms, he decided to leave without a goodbye, fearing this would prevent his great renunciation. The story of how they met years later and Raula became a monk is a story for a different time. But even now, with this short biographical input in our mind, let us return to the teaching of non-attachment and hear how it sounds when we have the Aṭṭhakathā in our mind. How does it sound when a father, and some would say an abandoning father, tells his son he should develop an attitude of, "This is not mine"? Actually, says the father, for your own good, you should avoid any personal attitude towards anything. Towards anything? Asked the son. And perhaps he means even towards you, father? Is it not okay to love you more than all? Or even, do you not at all see me as your own? Am I not more dear to you than all the other monks? The Aṭṭhakathā to this passage describes at length what Raula felt. His pride and shame, his love and pain. It allows hearing how the teaching is felt and not only learned. And it also invites the reader to think of this teaching in light of her own special and naturally complicated relationship with her family. When we consume our Buddhism in a quiet, nicely scented meditation room, or even only through the Pali Canon text, we receive a sterile version of its wisdom. The Aṭṭhakathā brings the teaching to life and into our lives. It gives us an opportunity to learn the tradition from within, to understand how Buddhists practice their Buddhism. It challenges the pure Buddhist principle and shows how, together with the path, it also lays bare the obstacle, the real and human inclination that makes this teaching so relevant, but also so hard. Or as a known meditation instructor once put it, if you think you're enlightened, spend a week with your family. Thank you.